I don't have my minutes with me either, but did you guys go over them?
Real briefly.
Did you go over the minutes, Louisa?
Briefly, I just glanced over them.
All right, do you want to put them off till next meeting? I forgot my Saturday tonight, so I don't have them with me. You didn't see anything that,
There was nothing that stood out, Rosalie.
okay, if you guys are
But
comfortable.
we can put them off till next meeting if you like.
It's up to you guys. No, it's up to you guys.
All right. Well, suppose
That's
you'll
the
need to
first
call us to
item,
order
so-
first.
Yep. When she's ready.
If I talk into the line, I'm gonna get like stereo.
All right, I call the January 16th, 2024 regular meeting of the Ware Board of Firewards to order. First item on the agenda is minutes.
I would move that we table that until next month so that we have all had a chance to review them.
Okay, motion's made, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and second to table the minutes till next meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstain, motion carries. Next item is the manifest. We have two, so I guess we have to read both of them. Can we do that in one motion? We can do that in one motion.
Are they gonna date, same check date?
Probably not.
No, one's 23
Okay, we can
and
do 'em.
one's 24.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, January 11th and January 18th. Sorry.
Okay, so we'll do, why don't we do the 11th first?
All right. I'll make the motion to accept the fire department's accounts payable manifest for checks dated January 11th, 2024, in the amount of $5,670.23.
Okay, motion's been made
I'll second that.
and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? All those in favor, aye. Aye, opposed, abstain, motion carries.
Ready?
Yep.
I'll make the motion to accept the fire department's accounts payable manifest for checks dated January 18th, 2024, in the amount of $2,883.90.
I will second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye, opposed, abstain, motion carries. Next up is Fire Chief's report.
Okay, old business, so for under personnel, members have finished up, the classes have followed. As you know, we had a lot of people in, training the past year. Firefighter paramedic Andy Wheeler has graduated firefighter level 1. He's going to be starting to work with the lieutenant when he can on his driver operator portions. Congratulations to firefighter Wheeler on that. 3 members have passed a grant-funded AMT class: firefighter Noah Brent, firefighter Cody LeMay, and firefighter Nathan Shatney. All 3 will be testing at the national level soon. This is going to greatly improve our response resources. Lieutenant Charest is expected to start her clinical classes in the near future for her paramedic class. We accepted an application for the call department. Firefighter Killian Donnelly has passed all prerequisites to join the call force again, so we'll welcome firefighter Donnelly. We're still trying to recruit 2 other people. For apparatus, A1 is in the shop. Very strong odor of exhaust. Hillsborough Ford did another smoke check and discovered a leak, which they fixed, but after 1 run, the smell was back. Donovan Springs stated the body is supposed to be in Londonderry first week of December. They are not sure at this point if they have it or not. In the yard, they will call back. The new ambulance landed in Iowa. We have 190 days till projected delivery. Al Hooper was just as surprised as us to see the chassis show up. The radios have been ordered for both the new ambulance and the utility. Engine 1 is 90% stripped. we lost a number of lengths of hose, brand new hose to the mice up at Station 3. Fire station, Armstrong did a preliminary walkthrough to assess the station before the duct cleaning. JP Pest has been added to both South Station and the Sugar Hill Station. This was done due to the mouse problem. The permit webpage for the forest fire permits is up and running at the station, so anyone can stop in and get a fire permit, and that will be free of charge, no charge for that. Of course, there's snow on the ground now, so we don't have to worry about that. Umbro will be in the station to assess the training room for the EOC preparedness, and rough estimates are adding for 2 dedicated phone lines and increasing our web availability. Any questions on that? Old business.
The 2 dedicated phone lines, are these for $600 a month bills from Granite State?
It is gonna be some money. I don't think it's gonna be $600 because they bill us on usage, and the phone lines will not be being used, and that will actually be coming out of the EOC budget as that progresses, because we don't have what we need to do what we need to do. God forbid something ever happened there. We just don't have the technical capabilities to do anything, and that was under the between talking to people who set up EOCs before and actually Umbro when they came and did the assessment for it. Anything else? No? Okay.
New business?
New business. Personnel. Most members have gone through their testing or will be testing shortly. Firefighter Noah Brent went and took his written already for his AEMT and passed it. And the others are gonna be following suit, soon. We have been covering the snowstorms here with a 3rd person to run the plow truck. That's been helping out greatly, especially with the crew going in and out for safety reasons. So that's been working out good. Firefighter Donnelly will be starting his EMT basic class soon. That's a grant-funded class, so it's not gonna cost the department, well, it'll cost us money, but it'll end up going back into the general fund, so,
It's not grant funded, it's the part of the state RSA that went through last year during COVID, where they're reimbursed by the state. Is that correct?
I don't know. To answer that question, honestly, I don't know, because I have not been handling the paperwork on it.
Right.
So either way, we're not paying for it, I guess, is the good point. Either way, whether it's through the state or through grant funded, we're not gonna be paying for it. We'll get that money back, or the town will get the money back. Apparatus, A1 has been back to Hillsborough Ford multiple times. The decision was to bring it to TMS Diesel for them to take a look at it. And within an hour or two, they said that it needed to go back to Ford because there were some obvious leaks. It was at Ford twice, but still had that exhaust smell to it. So after the last time of them saying that they thought that it was just residual smell that was in the truck, the ambulance was brought to Grapponi in Concord. They identified that's supposed to be a loose clamp, not a clam, but a loose clamp on the turbo, where actually the turbo halves come together. They tightened the clamp, and we picked up the ambulance. There's roughly around 300 miles and multiple hours of runtime outside, and really no smell has been detected in that, so we think we found the problem or fixed the problem. The bill from Grapponi was $841.86. I called Hillsborough Ford and actually forwarded them the bill. and after some spirited conversation, they said they would call Ford and get back to me, because it's actually a, workmanship thing. The turbo is warranted, but the labor and putting it in, and this was an install issue, that is not warranted, hence why we got the bill from Grapponi for the 841. So I'm gonna be working on trying to get that, paid for by Hillsborough Ford. I would imagine they would pay for that. Donovan Springs stated the body has been built. It just needs to be delivered, maybe in the next few weeks. So it's still out west. The forestry has been moved to Sugar Hill, station number 3 for the winter. Since the new engine was dropped by the selectmen, we're gonna be looking into spending some more money to have, things upgraded on engine 5, due to the fact that there was some stuff on that we've been that's been kinda lax on over the years for service-wise, and so that's where that engine's gonna have to stick around for a longer time, that we're gonna start looking into that. Engine 1 is now up at Highway for the winter. That was slated to be traded in towards the new truck, but now will go to the White Farm in the spring for auction. And the body for the new A1 is, A1 is on the production floor out in Iowa, and is being built, and we should have some pictures soon of the body. I talked to Al Hooper, a couple of days ago, and he's gonna try to get some pictures for that. When they do, we'll probably put them even up on the website or something, so people could kinda follow that. Fire station, stuff. Mouse traps have been very effective up at Sugar Hill Station number 3. So they're continuing to get activity up there. At the end of year purchase, a new server was approved for the fire station. That's to replace our old one. That's just, I guess, and a firewall, so that's gonna give us better protection and, I guess, allow us more space. I'm really not up on computer stuff. Awaiting answer on the old air packs, that could be sold back to the company. All the air packs that we had that weren't compliant, all those air packs are hoping the company can buy back. I sent pictures to them and emailed them, and I guess they're trying to make a decision up there and at least give a price, and then by the time that happens, that'll be probably be the new guard, the new selectmen, so it'll be up to them what they want to do, whether they want to hold off and send them to White Farm, or if they want them to go back to the company, but they're just sitting in a pile now doing nothing, so we can't use them. And Armstrong will be there in a week or so, on the 24th and the 25th, to do the duct cleaning for the entire safety complex, and get that done. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I just had a question, it's just real general. Since we're just starting the new year, I know last year, we had one member who was deployed and had to fill her spot, and there was some turnover. Are you aware, I mean, back to our overtime costs, is there anything coming down the pipe that you know of that we should be concerned about as far as any upcoming changes to our personnel? Do you foresee anything in the future that might be cause for alarm again, as far as the overtime costs that are concerned?
Well, the overtime costs, as you know, were a huge deal because everyone was out training, last year. We do have a member now that's actively looking to leave. I actually expect something in the next week or two, so we will have a vacancy that we have to fill, and until that gets filled, that will require overtime to fill that shift. So
just one? And then, of course,
correct. The member that was deployed firefighter Abbott has taken that position.
Yep.
So that, we were kinda lucky on that, just how everything worked out. But,
Okay, that was my only question. If we knew of any upcoming, issues with possibly having overtime, just even for a short period of time, while we look for another.
yep, we do have, the only overtime really that's been happening now is just natural from people taking vacations and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's all accounted for, that's no big deal.
You know, and the, just the snow coverage, the storm coverage, really, I think is the other major one, I guess, so far this year.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Questions, comments, concerns?
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, I wanted to let you get through your report first, but I did want to talk about the events of the two recent selectmen's meetings, and how it affects the fire department. So, a week ago from yesterday, the chief and I went to the selectmen's meeting, in which was the second go-through on our budget and also the warrant articles. They pretty much asked the same questions over again for that second meeting, so I was a little disappointed to have to sit through all that. But then when we got to the warrant articles, they ended up not supporting putting forward the warrant article for the new pumper. And then last night, I understand that they pulled the warrant article asking for a full-time chief. So I know that we, as a board, had supported that. I'm very disappointed in the Board of Selectmen for not taking into serious consideration that we take our job very seriously. I think we've all put in a lot of work over the years in trying to see this fire department do its job that the townspeople are asking for adequately. And so I think it was very short-sighted, personally, that they didn't at least ask the voters for that. I also, Chief called the retirement, because I had heard that if we had a part-time retiree in there as fire chief, that they could only be an administrative chief. And basically, they can only be an administrative chief, but if they occasionally come back for fires, they can possibly get a waiver from the retirement system. And so, again, you know, in my opinion, we were looking for a working chief, and especially with Chief Rourke, we had that paramedic level, which was very valuable to the town. So that's one thing that I'm really disappointed in. So there was also some talk about transition over, and I heard Selectman Matthews say a week ago Monday that the non-transition, which I didn't appreciate that comment. We sent Chris Olson, I believe it was in July, we voted as a board to have Acting Chief Chris Olson at the time represent us for the Board of Selectmen, which he did, and he was told by one of the board members to go through the town administrator, and that nobody else on the board said anything different, and so we assumed that that was what we were to do, and so Chief Olson was doing just that. And now the selectmen seem to be complaining about the lack of our board wanting to have a smooth transition, and that is false. The phone rings both ways. I've not received any ask. We talked about when Chairman Hippler was here at a recent meeting, we talked about having a transition, but haven't heard a word from the selectmen of when they want to do that. So, you know, I think that we've done everything that we could. to run the fire department responsibly, and I think that even with our differences, we have done the best we could. And I'm not optimistic that things are gonna go well in the future. That's my spiel. Does anybody else have anything to say?
I just have one thing to say on the working chief thing. I did contact retirement, and they have what, again, there would have to be a letter or something drafted by the Board of Selectmen. I have yet to, which I will do, contact the New Hampshire Fire Commission, because the Fire Commission may have a different story on that, on what can be done and what can't be done. So, once I get something from the Fire Commission, then I'll be able to, come back and bring that back to you, probably by next month for sure.
Well,
But that part of it, you know, that's half of it's retirement. The
Yep.
Fire Commission is the other half, and they may have a different view on that, so.
Is that a new rule? Because didn't Chief Azina fight fires? He came to fires, didn't he?
He was grandfathered under the old rules,
Yeah.
because he was also working more hours. They made changes, I don't remember the exact year, it was within the last,
I think
I
it
wanna
was
say
in,
6 or 7 years.
I think it was in 2022, or, 22. They changed the hours, they dropped the hours from 30 to 26. So you can't work more than 1,352 hours in a year. And if you do work more than that, and they find that out, you, meaning the person who is retired, loses their retirement for a period of 1 year. You lose your money for 1 year. So,
But going back to
it
the
behooves,
acting chief thing, do you know when that changed?
what's that?
Do you know when the rule changed about being able to actually be an acting, for lack
That-
of a better word,
Admin.
than administrative?
Well, I know that,
changed?
I don't think it was 22 when they went to the 25 hours a week. It was a few years ago.
Oh.
Because we were actually, with Chief Azina, we had to be careful his last few years not to change his job description or his title, because he would have been under the new rules at that time. So it was a few years ago, but it wasn't too long ago.
Yeah, I thought
That was hours. I'm
It was that-
asking about the.
I don't know when the other change was
that
made,
change was
so,
where I was going with that.
yeah. And that's what the chief was told, as he relayed to me. And I had heard that, so you hear a lot of things, and we wanted to verify that. Is there any other comments or questions or anything?
And, no, never mind. I answered my own question as I was about to ask it.
Okay. Is there anything else we have to discuss tonight? Not that I'm aware of. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Motion's been made. Is there a second? And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
We are in our normal spot.
they finished up early. They finished up early.
No, no one was here.
Oh, well, yeah, she called me and said we could have it, that they were all done. Absolutely.
Dave, there's a copy of the agenda on the table for you. Welcome to the January 16th, 2004 Park and Rec Commission meeting. We're going to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. If everyone can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I have one amendment I want to make to the, or actually two, that I want to make to the agenda. The minute taker job posting. I forgot to put that on there. Did everyone get a chance to read the description?
I saw it, it was a while ago.
Okay, it was in beginning of December. Are we okay to post that? Okay. All right, and then the field usage request form that we got from WAC, we're going to postpone that until, April. Do you still have the forms? I mean, it's
they're-
March,
March. They're in the box on the back.
We should probably reach out to the individuals and just let them know that they won't be considered until the March meeting,
Yeah, February or March is when we usually do this, but I would say March.
March.
I just
'Cause-
noticed that the one on, for the baseball, he was doing late in August when soccer's already in play, so he may need to adjust the dates back a little bit.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
Anyone else?
But we can get that
talk
when we,
about it in March.
we'll get there in March.
Anyone else have any amendments? Nope. Okay. Public comment.
Hello, Tara Mann, Worthby Road. So I came tonight because I wanted to try and explain why it is that this issue in regard to the Bank Schmidt property is so important to so many people. So I'm going to share an email that I sent to WAC last night. In 2014, I was a mom of 4 WAC and John Stark football kids, ages 13, 11, 9, and 6. I voted in favor of Article 29 in spite of the huge tax impact. So to put the tax impact in perspective, a $70,000 police cruiser would raise our tax burden by about 8 cents. This article that passed raised it by 24 cents, so 3 times as much as a police cruiser. Because there was an urgent need for more fields. So did most of the other moms and dads on the teams. We were all taxpayers and we were all voters. Between the football parents, soccer parents, baseball, softball, moms and dads and grandparents too, as well as our budding field hockey program and lacrosse, there were at least 300 of us. The article only passed by a little bit more than 200 votes. If you had taken those WAC and youth athletes' parents out of it, this wouldn't have passed. And we voted for it based on a promise that was made, on what was explained to us about what we would be getting in return for the town's $500,000, more than $500,000 investment. We assumed we would be getting a return on investment that went beyond just a piece of land that we can drive by and look at. We wanted something that was real and substantial and that would make a real impact for ourselves and our children and our children's children. So what was discussed in the deliberative section and finalized and set forth in writing in that warrant article was what we believed the town was promising to us. We voted on the expectation that those fields would be constructed in the area that was the most turnkey, that would cost the parents and taxpayers the least amount to construct, because that was what was physically responsible and in the best interest of the voters. We had an expectation that the fields would be constructed in a time frame that at least our younger children would get to play on those fields at some point. Now my 3 oldest children are voters, and my daughter is driving. None of them got to play on those promised fields. My taxes went up considerably, and I got absolutely nothing in return. The money that we saved on the gravel extracted from the pit is actually less than the tax revenue that the land was providing for the town while it was under Mr. Banks' ownership. And neither did any of the other parents of our youth athletes that all voted for that warrant. In 2018, when I was on Park, we went to the town to try and get movement on construction of those fields because it was like tossing the apple of discord into the middle of all the youth parents. We had lacrosse fighting football, football fighting lacrosse, football and lacrosse fighting John Stark, whack. So it was actually creating division and animosity between parents that otherwise were friends. So we all said enough is enough, we need to make movement on what was promised to us. So in 2018, we went to the town, and basically the town told us that those fields that we were promised now had conditions on them, conditions that were never disclosed to the voters and that the voters never agreed to. In writing, or in the warrant article, or in the deed, or in the deliberative session. The conditions that if they were properly noticed and disclosed to the voters so that we could make an informed decision, it would have caused most of us to not have voted in favor of the warrant. In my opinion, it was a municipal bait and switch, where we were promised something to get us to pass the warrant article, to give Mr. Banks over $500,000 of taxpayer funds, and to be clear, every single dollar he received belonged to the town of Ware. There were no private funds, there were no private grants. It was all money that one way or another belonged to the people of Ware. I'm hoping the town chooses to finally honor and deliver on the promise made to us a decade ago. The promise that the town put in writing, which should be legally binding, not the demands that the Conservation Committee have tried to force on the voters after the fact, which we did not agree to, and not to the constant urgings of Mr. Banks, or Mr. Sweeney. I believe that the public good outweighs the good of one or two people. So it's too late for me and for my kids. We're not gonna get to use these fields. That ship has sailed for us. But there's a lot of moms and dads and kids that need this, and they need it urgently. They certainly need it more urgently than a hayfield. It's something that literally, once it's built, hundreds of people will be using it almost on a daily basis. You can't say the same about a hayfield. There's no urgent need in our town for a hayfield. And since there's no legal requirement that hayfield stay in agricultural conservation, it seems like it's in the best interest of the people of Ware, which I think that should be everyone's primary concern. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Any additional public comments? Okay, we're gonna close public comment. Did everyone have a chance to review the December minutes?
I did.
I think I printed them out.
Thank you.
Yep, those are the December ones. I only printed one copy, but I can make another one if we need to.
I do remember reading it.
I did get all the other ones, and I think they're all up to date except this.
I have somebody messaging me asking me why the screen is black, and I remember that was something that was
It's been
discussed.
ongoing for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
The part should be in Friday to fix that.
Okay.
So
It's an
the
audio.
video goes out on Channel 6, and the video will get posted later. I'd assume tomorrow.
I think if you watch it on Channel 6.
Yeah,
it-
on Channel 6 you have video.
But if you watch it on YouTube, you can't, correct?
Yeah.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Then tomorrow the Channel 6 video will get posted.
Okay, just wanted to let them know. Okay. Oh, yeah.
I remember reading it. I didn't see anything, or remember anything that was,
Yeah, I think I read this a while ago, that's the problem. Is everybody good with minutes?
yep.
Okay. Make a motion to accept the minutes from December.
Do you have a second?
I'll second them.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Facilities updates.
The only update that I have is that, I did go to, Country 3 to go purchase trash cans. They didn't have them all in. And, I ended up not getting them before the end of the year. I did order locks. They came in last week.
Okay.
So they're not up yet. And I do intend to take the lights down at the gazebo. I just wasn't feeling well last week, so I
Okay.
didn't get to them. But I will get there. Now that it's snow, looks pretty, so.
Where are you gonna put the trash cans when you get them?
They're for Chase Park.
They're for Chase Park.
Okay, but where are you gonna store them?
I will probably go over and put them inside of bathrooms if they'll fit.
Okay, 'cause the Eagle Scout benches are in the bathroom on the right. There's 18 of them, or
Yeah.
16 of them in there, stacked up, standing
Yeah,
end to end.
There
so-
should
we're not
be-
getting that many trash cans.
Okay.
There
should
should be
fit.
enough that you can,
Well, there's no floor space, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
is
they're light, though. They
they're
could go
from
on
the
top.
toilet to the door, so.
Okay.
All right.
It'll be
or
fine.
we can put them in the other one. The other one, I think, it's all low, cause it's all just the swim lines, so you can stack them on top.
And at this point, there's no urgency in getting them, so.
Okay. All right. Denise, you wanna share anything?
Yeah, so, there's been a couple of meetings, regarding the East Road Schmidt property. So 2 weeks ago, there was a select board meeting, that we were all discussed our warrant articles, so I stayed for that. I think I got on the agenda at midnight, it was late.
At least, yeah.
So what we talked about at that meeting was, at that time, to keep the warrant article keep it active, and if need be, we could pull it either prior to the warrant being put in effect, if we didn't have an answer. So at that point, we hadn't had any final information from legal on what her ruling was on the property. So we agreed to leave it on the agenda. Since then, there has been information that came down from legal, and I don't know, Salem, I guess I defer to you. I couldn't get a clear answer last night if those emails can be shared, that those findings can be shared. Are they still?
Well, I think what we talked about last night was the town council did not have all the information available, so sharing an early determination may be detrimental.
Okay. So do you know, so I guess it was, maybe you can help us understand. So in November, we had a meeting where we really focused on this property, formulated all of the questions. All the parties were there. How did not all the documents get to that? I mean, I guess that's,
I have the same question. It is an ongoing problem,
okay.
in my opinion, that needs to be corrected. I think further, we had talked at that meeting about having an actual in-person meeting with
Correct,
town
we did.
council, and that also
Right.
has not happened, and I believe still should happen.
Right.
I think that's a reasonable next step. Of course, we'd have to talk about it.
So do you know, I didn't think to ask last night, then whatever documents have been indicated that weren't sent have they been sent? Is there any reason that she doesn't have them all now? Or do we not know that?
As far as I'm aware, and
Yep.
so, I would treat this as secondhand. She should have all the information that everybody wants her to show, but, again, as far as I'm aware, nobody has heard back from her.
And
So she may say, oh, this was new, or she may, like,
Okay.
she may say, I don't know, like, who knows?
All right.
Nobody's heard back.
All right, so, thank you for answering
Another
that.
problem.
Yeah, thank you for answering that question, because it was a little bit shocking since so much time had expired and everybody knew who was reviewing the documents, that didn't happen. But, so anyways, that last night at the meeting, the warrant, the proposed warrant was presented. They went item by item through it for everybody to get up.
Is that our warrant?
Yes.
Could I see that for a minute?
It's a whole bunch of them.
Okay. But is ours in there?
Yeah, it's, ours is one of the very last ones before the petition, and just, pardon I scribbled over
That's okay.
a whole bunch of them, but it's number 25. So anyways, last night I indicated to the Board of Selectmen that at this point, we probably felt like we wanted to leave it on the warrant until we could talk about it here tonight and get, sort of hash it out. Since the meeting 2 weeks ago, a warrant article was submitted by petition, and you'll see it on there, Pam, if you keep reading. There's an,
Yeah, 29.
yeah, so there's a petition, article by petition, directing the Conservation Commission under the guidance of the Board of Selectmen to put before the voters how to really essentially disperse that land, asking that the 12 acres to be set aside for recreation, that the front part of the property be designated for that, 8 acres for gravel, and the remainder to be put in conservation, as was stated. So that's what the petition article. So that just raises the question for us, do we leave our article there or don't we? I think originally we had left it because we thought if the lawyer came back and said that field property can be used for recreation, there was nothing in the documentation that prevented that, or in the town vote, then we had that warrant article there to be able to do an engineering study. Now, we're in a position that it's being delayed, and, but there is a petition. But we don't know if that warrant article is gonna pass or not. I personally think there's so much up in the air that there may be some benefit to us at this point, not to advance the article for $35,000, because we don't know. One could fail, one could pass.
Yeah, we talked about those scenarios last night.
So,
Because there's the important rule of no means no, that if an article is raised on a particular matter and the town votes no, then you can't do anything about that, what was
correct,
mentioned in the article,
for at least a year.
until the next,
Yeah, and so, and I think there's, and there is also one article on here that is missing. So the meeting last night was, I don't know what the right word is, suspended and will continue on Monday night? Is
Yep.
suspended the right word?
I think technically, it just will be continued.
Okay.
It was continued.
So it was late again. There was an article missing on here. Folks didn't have a chance to look at it. Really never got to talk about petition articles. So we have the opportunity to go back next week and just say, we've decided to pull this article before the warrant is written. I just think there's so much up in the air, not being sure what we are gonna be able to do. There's so many confusing articles. I think it's in our best interest to pull the request for any money at this point and just wait and see what happens. And then if all were to come into our favor, it doesn't mean we can't have a public hearing, ask to use money that we have in our revolving fund, those kinds of things. So I don't know what you guys think, but I think it's in our best interest to not advance something that's so up in the air. Because if it does get voted down, because there is so much up in the air,
Then we
and if we
can't
have an
do anything.
opportunity, we can't do anything.
Right.
If we
And
take
also,
it
there's
off.
a lot of confusion with the different
Yeah.
articles.
So, I don't know, so that's the first thing I wanted to talk about related to last night's meeting, but, I would.
Oh, wait a minute, so the other article is out there, just so I understand it right, they're saying that the front 12 acres that are currently the hayfield can be
So
used.
there are two articles, if you haven't seen them, I'll
I
pass them yet.
haven't seen them, so.
Okay, so one article is, this one here was put in by petition by the townspeople, okay? This article is the one that didn't make it on the document last night, and I believe that's the article, the correct wording of the article submitted by the Conservation Commission. And you'll see, I don't know, Pam, have you seen either one of them? So I'll pass the other one down to you after. Actually, you can read one of them off of here. Is that me? No.
I saw our article and the petitioned article.
So basically, if the one that we were going to do for the 35,000 for the site plan didn't pass, then,
Can't do
we'd have to wait,
anything.
we'd be held up an entire year. So, and
We're
with,
still gonna be held up a whole other year because I don't think we're gonna have $35,000 in our revolving account.
well, either way,
Well, you
it's
have
a
to
lot of
remember,
confusion.
Dave, we have close to 20 right now. We will have revenue from Chase Park, and there are other organizations, I mean, WAC has indicated that through, I believe it would have to be a public hearing, that they would, because of their interest in getting the fields going. So, I think, again, we had the one engineering study, it's a hope that it's enough, but I would have loved it if we had gotten all three back. So I don't know, I just feel like there's just so much going on, it would be better for us to pull the article, wait and see what happens. If the vote comes in, or the ruling comes in, that land can't be used, then we don't have money sitting there that we don't really need, and that's the other thing. You don't wanna get approval for money and then not have anything to use it on.
I agree.
So I don't know, my recommendation would be, we let the select board know next week at the meeting
That's the other article
that we're gonna pull.
on
I
yet.
told them last night we would
It's
talk
not
about it
ours.
tonight and then make a final decision.
Sense.
I know.
What's up, Dave?
This Article 2 just doesn't make any sense. I'm reading it, I've read it 3 times, like going,
So before we get, because I would like to, with you here, Salem, I would like to talk about that, but before we do that, can we stay on the topic of,
Yep.
do we want to pull our warrant article? I guess I would make a motion that we pull our warrant article, due to a lack of clarity on what's gonna happen with this property.
I second.
Any further discussion? Okay. So Denise's motion to pull the warrant article or the article from the warrant. And Lisa seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, so Dave is abstaining, Lisa, Denise, Pam, vote aye. Denise?
So, on Monday, I believe the meeting is going to start, and again, Lisa was there last night, so jump in if I miss anything. But everybody's welcome to come. So the meeting ended last night, that they began to talk about the remaining article that wasn't on the sheet of paper, so we'll get a copy of it. Have you seen it, Pam?
Which one is that?
This is the one submitted by the conservation, ignore all my writing on there, but, so there'll be two articles on, if the board approves that this one remain on the warrant, because I guess you have the right, I mean, you pulled some last night, you have that piece to decide. I have a couple questions. Are you okay with me asking some questions?
I
or would
might
you-
not have an answer or even a good answer, but I'll do my best.
I'm gonna steal that back. So, a couple of notes that I had written when we did see this, and I was gonna raise last night. I do think, and you guys asked the question, so the select board did ask, what is the cost, to put this, if this were to pass, to put this land into conservation? I know there's a zero tax impact, because it comes out of the conservation fund, so it's not being taken out of taxpayer dollars. But like every other warrant we talked about last night, particularly the finance committee, continually asking for clarity on what is the cost of things. I do hope that will get brought up again, that I think it's, in all fairness, if the warrant article is gonna move forward, in all fairness to the people in the town, they should at least have a sense of what it's going to cost. It may be an estimate, and that's fine, but I think like every other warrant article. The other thing that, Salem, I just wanna make sure that you're aware of when you look at this, and I don't know how much time you had last night to look at it before the meeting. In the way it is written, so the warrant article says that, to complete the work initiated March 12th, 2013, town meeting vote, warrant article 29, shall the town authorize the Conservation Commission to convey the associated conservation easement over a portion of the Bank Schmidt property, map 408, lot 123, on East Road, including the existing hayfield, and exclusive, so meaning the easements on the hayfield, but it excludes 20 contiguous acres set aside, as originally intended, for ongoing gravel pit operation and future recreational facilities to a qualified land trust. The 20 contiguous, I think in all the documents that we've read, 20 contiguous was not a word that I recall seeing, nor was it in the original warrant article. It said 8 acres for gravel, 12 for recreation, remainder for conservation, but it didn't say they had to be contiguous. If the ruling was that the front fields could not be used for recreational use, and let's just say we got an anonymous donor to give us $1 million that would allow us to put a road out there and cut all the trees and move all the boulders, but it was determined that the contiguous land around the gravel pit wasn't the best spot, that there was another spot out there better. That contiguous word ties us to, we have to use the land around the gravel pit.
Yes.
And that's not what I believe the original
Well,
warrant.
and I think that is the question. A lot of people believe it was intended that way. A lot of people seem to believe it was not intended that way, and that is the question. So
So
I don't think it's clear one way or the other.
So I just want you to be aware that, this is difficult, because if we had to use it, and it's not the best spot of the
Yeah.
117 left, I mean, it could be that,
So devil's advocate, if they're trying to finish it, then they need to know, like, where all the corners are gonna be, so they can finalize it.
Right, but at least give, if the ruling comes back, or the vote comes back that the field land is not an option, and we have the, let's just say you go right behind the fence that's there, when, you were there when we did the walkthrough. Benji seemed to think that there might be some area there that was better than others. Let's just say, for the sake of tonight, right beyond that gate, there were 12 acres that were better than around the gravel pit. This is essentially saying there's only one spot and one spot only. And if we can't use the field land, at least give us the opportunity to pick the best spot on what is left.
Well, I think it goes back to that core question of, was it intended as contiguous or not? And for those who believe it was, then it's critical.
Okay, I'm just telling you.
Sure, I mean, yeah,
And,
I mean, if all the way in by the gravel pit, you know, you're almost going like Allard Field in Goffstown, where you're way, way, way in,
Yeah.
and, you know,
Yeah, we know what kind of hassle that is, not to mention that it's
so
a
none
sloped
of
area.
it is ideal, but we're at a point right now where, at least while we're all talking, everybody knows. So I think that contiguous acres as originally intended is a difficult one, and you're right, Salem. That's part of the question that's up there.
Was that wording on the original
So I'll read,
article that
just for
voters?
everybody's sake here tonight, I'll read the original warrant article. To see if the town would authorize the selectmen, and again, it was the selectmen in the original warrant article, to enter into an agreement to purchase 137 acres of the Elma Schmidt property on East Road for an amount not to exceed $600,000 in an effort to protect the rural character and nature of the town, and further to authorize the selectmen to convey certain conservation easements over portions of the property to qualify to a qualified land trust such as Piscataquag Land Conservancy or the Society of the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. 20 acres of property will be set aside for future recreational facilities and gravel pit for the town. The word contiguous is not in there. I just want to point that out. It could be interpreted differently, I'm just telling you the word contiguous isn't there. 20 acres of property will be set aside for future recreational facilities in gravel pit for the town. And then it goes on to talk about how the money would be raised. So further to raise and appropriate $380,000 to be offset by $50,000 from the Conservation Fund and $130,000 from the Mildred Hall Fund. The remainder of the purchase cost will be offset by grants being sought by the Russell Foundation. This is non-lapsing article and will not lapse until the project is complete or until December 31st, 2018, whichever comes first. And I think there was a determination that the lapsing had to do with the purchase of the land, not
The easement,
finishing the
yep.
rest of it. So this has not lapsed.
correct.
So I think we got that one at least off the table.
Yeah,
Just for everybody's understanding here, the offset of the grants, the offsetting grants were never able to be obtained. And there's a set of minutes from the Mildred Hall Foundation where I believe it was the gentleman from Russell Foundation indicated that the grants fell through because the land is not, the soil is not agriculturally high quality, and they were unable to obtain the grants. So what happened was the Conservation Commission had a public hearing. Nobody was at the public hearing, but they legally held a public hearing like they needed to. Nobody was there. They voted to make up the difference, and the difference came from the conservation. And then I think Mildred Hall, instead of putting in 130, put in like 155. That made the total sum of monies that came through that. There was a statement from a select board members that some of them felt Mildred Hall had contributed the money on the condition that the field land was put into conservation. We went through all the minutes, so the minutes were not kept on site. Somebody petitioned for them to all be, as a right to know. We went through them, we were able to find all the minutes that referenced the, talking about the property. Mildred Hall Committee did authorize the purchase. They had a lot of statements. A lot of statements in the minutes were things like, this is great, we don't have enough parking in the center for town events. This was a place we could park, hold town events. So they were even looking at the field land as potential parking. One of the Mildred Hall members indicated that the field was not of agricultural quality. It was great for hay fields, but not for anything beyond that. So they had discussions like that, but there was no contingent that we could find in their minutes that they approved the money under the condition that that front land would be put in an easement. And I think these are all the documents that went up to the lawyer to look at. So that's so that was the original warrant, and I think that's what everybody right now is trying to deem out. There are minutes from board meetings, select board meetings, conservation, planning, zoning, and I think maybe it's the zoning minutes that didn't get up there.
It was at least an actual variance
Yeah.
on the additional
So I do
seven
I
and
do
change
have-
acres.
I do have the copy, I think the board had sent it to me, a copy of the zoning variance so the Russell Foundation, on behalf of the sellers, went to the zoning board and asked for a variance on the pieces of the property where the buildings sit. Zoning requires a 5-acre minimum for each of those properties. They asked for that to be reduced to 3.5 acres. Therefore, that allowed them to give up more land to go with the other. That's where that 7.5 shows up on the map. They received a variance to reduce their properties from 5 acres. I think there were 2 or 3 properties, from 5 acres to 3.5, so that they could have enough to give 7+ more acres of that field land. So that, I have a copy of that if anybody wants to look at it. In that application, there's a whole host of reasons why. That included that they wanted to donate the land, that it would make it part of all the other field land that was in the area, and there was even mention in that document that there would be recreation use on that, a whole host of things. So I think it's probably a good thing that legal's gonna take a look at it, because it was really a zoning variance to reduce the lot size. It was not a zoning variance to say, oh yes, and this all goes into conservation. But then again, that's my interpretation. Legal can interpret it however they need to. So I think, that's a missing piece that we've all been dealing with.
Okay.
So where we are right now, so anyways, I think on Monday, everybody has an opportunity to speak to the remaining articles, which includes this one you just read, ask questions. I believe the board has a decision they put it on the warrant, they choose not to, they choose to recommend it, or they choose to put it on but not recommend it. I think those are their options. And so I think there were people here last night because it was so late, and this was not on the document, a lot of them left. So I do believe that it gives people the opportunity to come back Monday night and, you know, speak to this, to that warrant.
Okay, hang on, we have the gentleman in the back has a question for us, or a statement.
May I go?
Yes, you may.
Yep.
Thank you. Good evening, I'm Andy Fulton, 37 Hemlock Drive. I chair the Conservation Commission. And I guess first thing I'd like to take opportunity for is to make a public apology to Denise. I believe, Denise, you referred to a conservation member threatening you, and I'm sorry that our attempt at conversation, my attempt at conversation, was taken as a threat. I intend you and have no ill harm. No harm, intend no harm for you. I have no ill will. And I'm sorry, quite aggrieved that it was taken that way. I think people who know me well know that that is not what I'm about, not who I am.
Thank you.
Second point is you were just discussing the warrant article from 2013, the Article 29 that brought the property into town possession, or at least authorized it coming into town possession. That grant that was mentioned, those grants that were mentioned were designed to further support securing that front field as part of an agricultural district with other pieces of those hay fields, with neighboring owners' hay fields. It was creating it was to support the creation of further agricultural preservation. And it didn't happen. But one thing that it shows is, though that portion of the property was intended to be conserved. And the whole property is in conservation. The question now is, where does the conservation easement go? And it's not as though the property is not conserved. It's conserved, it's under the management of the Conservation Commission. But the question is, where does the easement go? So that's a higher level of conservation. The property is already a conservation property, simple as looking at the deed. So I am in firm recollection of what transpired, and I think we can move forward based on what is desired now. But I would be very reluctant to characterize what was done then as uncertain or unclear. There are many of us who were involved in that transaction, and we well remember. And the article, I believe, was written by the Board of Selectmen. It was not written by the Conservation Commission, with the assistance of Ian McSweeney of the Russell Foundation. Had we, as a Conservation Commission, made the simple request to add the word contiguous to that warrant article, this wouldn't be discussed now. It wasn't. Nobody thought of it. Nobody thought it necessary. We have abundant lines of evidence showing that the intent, including the very fact that we were looking for grants, was to preserve the hayfield as a hayfield, subject to other uses. I mean, I think many of us here have been to a fair and you park on a grassland. But you do that for a day or two or a weekend. And that doesn't negate the value of the land for that form of agricultural use. And I believe that's the sort of parking that was envisioned as overflow parking, like any fair goer in New England probably has encountered. So I understand that there's a strong desire by many to do something different. But there is a responsibility by the Conservation Commission to honor the commitment that we made, that we backed up with substantial amounts of funding, essentially filling the hole that was made when the grants didn't come through, so the property could come into town possession. And I know there has been stated very well tonight that there's interest in having additional athletic fields for the youth of our town. You know, athletics, you can learn a lot, you can strengthen yourself, you can you know, help grow a person. But I think something we ought to also be teaching our kids is the power of a promise, and that you don't go back on your promise. So this purchase for the town, using conservation funds, was with the promise of what we were gonna do, and we haven't kept that promise. Board of Selectmen hasn't done their part, town administrator hasn't done her part, and then, I'll say it, Conservation Commission, and I speak as an individual, I was not invited or sent here by Conservation Commission. Perhaps Conservation Commission has not done its part. So, what we are trying to do is complete the deal, keep our promise, and I think there's a very important lesson for our kids in doing that, so, thank you.
And
So-
I appreciate you getting up and speaking, and I think we all agree promises are important, and I think, one of the challenges has been, is many people in this town, and I think we had an individual, you walked in late, she was almost finished, but she's representing what many folks have said to us, who sat through the deliberative session while this warrant article was being, put together, and I think just as many people feel promises were made. Maybe, everybody, there was a lot of, well, we just assumed because it wasn't clearly specified, but that there were promises that, portions of that field could be used. And so I think you're absolutely right, everybody.
Used for,
Right.
as I said, the fair type activities.
Right, but I think the fact that the word in here said recreational facilities, but I do guess I'll ask, is there a reason why even today you feel the 12 acres needs to be contiguous to the gravel pit? At one of the Board of Selectmen meetings, you stood up and indicated that you might have found a different area on that property that, and maybe I'm confused, but you had a document in your hand, some kind of mapping that you had done.
Yes, I've walked that property. I did share
Yeah.
a notion,
Yep.
nothing more than that,
Yeah.
not vetted, not
And
sent by the
would that be
Conservation Commission, but
contiguous- Would that be contiguous with the gravel, or in a different location?
thank you for asking. In my walk of the property, both times past and recently in 2023, it did surprise me that the area northeast of the gravel pit was relatively flat-lying. It wasn't a huge grade change across it. And it does not meet, I understand, a lot of the other desires and ideal conditions of where to put a facility. But honestly, I looked at it and said, well, I don't know where we are with this gravel mining operation. But if the gravel mining operation could be managed to a certain point where there's excess gravel that could be used in that project, there could, and I thought pretty reasonably be maybe a two-tier, like many facilities have, a lower field, a higher field, with a building even somewhere that serves other
Kind of what
purposes.
Bolton is like that, Bolton's kind of,
But a bigger area and a solid, large rectangle, easy boundaries to survey, and it could afford a spot for a grander vision. Of course, it'd be more financing that would be needed to do that. But in my look at it, it was not like the hill that is bedrock.
Right.
Blasting to put in a field is, no way, not happening. Just, grades that you have to, huff and puff when you're out of shape like me and have to climb up are not gonna be good terrain to use for a field. But it did strike me that in the combination between that pit and that area that goes over to Mount William Inc. property, there might be possibility for something more, something grander, something more than you could pull out of 7 acres.
so I guess, so my question.
And so there's value
Right.
in having it contiguous, because you have a larger
Right.
block to work with.
But if it's contiguous and it's, the better part is greater than 12 acres, we're stuck. Because we are only allocated 12 acres. So
No, 12 plus 8, 20 acres.
the gravel pit, and we're already 10 years.
All right, I'm sorry, I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying. You're saying 12 now, and
We-
that's the,
Right, so if you said it has to be.
I was saying 20 when we're, as a town, decide we are done mining. And I don't know what the plan is for how far,
Right,
you know, DPW might go with mining, but I see what you're saying when you say
so
12.
we're already 20 years,
Yeah.
20 years, we're already 10 years into mining, they've stopped because their permit has run out. I don't know if they're gonna renew it or what, but my point that I was trying to say to Salem earlier was, if we were to be able to financially do it, which again, as you've indicated, it's further out, it's a lot more mining, cutting, moving boulders, but say somebody donated us $1 million, but it wasn't contiguous to the area you're talking about, it's not contiguous 12 acres to the pit, this article that your, commission has put forward would tie our hands to go any further than 12 acres, but beyond. And that's why I was concerned when I saw that. I don't know that we'll be able to ever use that portion of the land, but if we were, we have to stay within 12 acres of that pit.
Denise, I think that is something that's discernible right now,
Yeah.
if there is such. I don't think we need to say, well, if we find out that it is usable. I think we have enough folks within the town, even the town government's various boards, commissions, committees, who could look at it, as well as departments, and say, the only, you know, we could rule out, I guess, starting from the other end,
Yeah.
we could rule out 85% of the property,
Right, right.
and just say, that's of no future use for developing a ball field, like what we did down at Bolton Field. So then you're left with 15% of it. And then the trick would be, let's identify that. And if our thinking is supported and it prevails, it doesn't include the hayfield, but it's, you know, up to 12 acres, perhaps not even contiguous to the gravel pit. Let's figure out where that is. Let's figure that out now before deliberative. You know, we have maps that can be generated that use exceedingly fine contour, elevation contour work. They're called LiDAR. You can practically see a big boulder on them. You can see stone walls. And we can agree to a property analysis so that the town can move forward, so that parks can understand where the opportunity may lie on that parcel and compare that potentially to other opportunities we don't even know about now.
And I do think that is the key.
And
because
that would be a strong thing to have at deliberative, so folks are informed. This is a property, this is the lay of the land.
Right.
This is where it's, you know, the
But I think.
folks who develop do this all the time, steep
Right.
gradient. This is where it's above 13% or what have you, and all that stuff gets spelled out pretty easily.
I think that, and I don't disagree with what you said. I do think that the concern, you somewhat stated it, everybody who walked through the property stated it. Even a former board member who was chair of the committee, he submitted a letter. The big challenge for Parks and Rec is to put a road out there, to cut the timber, to move the boulders, to get electrical, to get water, is gonna be so
But-
expensive
Yes, of course.
compared to if we had access to the front property, it brings that cost down.
But
And that may not happen, but,
In my view, the payback would be so much lower if you can actually get that 20 acres that is blessedly contiguous, because it gives you more options to design. I think anyone looking at a landscape evaluation says, well, yeah, if you got 12 here and you got 8 over here, you can do this much with that 8, you can do this much with that 12, but you put them together, now you can do a vision that's grander. And yes, you would need to go to a bond. We haven't done that in a long time in this town.
I mean, I think we're not
That
optimistic.
takes a unified campaign.
Yeah,
Everybody working
Yeah,
together
yeah.
to pull that off.
yeah.
Lots of other towns do it. People are coming from other towns that have done that. Maybe the new folks are arriving here with that vision
Right.
would support it.
Right.
It would take time, and it would, sometimes they're even, look at the new highway department garage, voted down a couple times before it was approved. But we had, in the not-so-distant past, we put bonds out for a school, we paid those off. We put bonds out for a safety complex, we paid those off. We put bonds out for a conservation land purchase, we paid that off. We put bond out for the DPW, and I think we're closing in on probably paying that off. I don't know where the market is, it can be good, it can be bad, but that's what I'm saying, you just get more bang for your buck if you can go contiguous and you can work a grander scheme, and yes, you would have to overcome numerous hurdles. If it is a will of the town, the voters, the folks who actually come out to the polls to say, we want this field turned into ball fields now. It doesn't matter what the original intent was, it wasn't locked in, it wasn't done, this is our option now. Yes, something could be done fairly rapidly with fairly short dollars in comparison, but it only gives you a little increment of improvement. It doesn't give you, what, more than 3 fields maybe, if you're really clever in the way you put it in, you do something
No,
with the road.
No, I think it's probably more than that, but
We
again,
haven't-
that was the purpose of the engineering study, to be able to come back and say, you know, how many can we actually get? So, I think, I appreciate that you're coming to the meeting and speaking with us. Dave, I think you had a question?
Well, this one is, you say you manage all the conservations in town. Is there another one other than East Road that might be a better fit, seeing how it sounds like, obviously with whatever the original agreement was, I'm not gonna get into that, but is there other conservation pieces that we may be able to take? Because obviously we have the field at Inison, but going down into that, to do that, is just so much swamp, so much piece there to
that's
upgrade.
not even enough.
Upgrade Inison would be
Right,
it would be way, way, way more expensive. So is there, other than East Road, is there somewhere else that you guys have got property that you can say, hey, how about this one over here? Or somewhere else where we can put fields on or do something?
Believe me if you will, and if you don't feel so inclined, that's fine, but we've looked at that as individuals.
Yep.
As a vice chair who's a very accomplished land expert who's been involved in purchasing and managing conservation's land, and myself with my background in mapping through geology and looking at water resources and hydrogeology. Just, never mind could we, but is there something in our possession that would be tailor-made? The short answer is no. And I've said this before, and I wholeheartedly believe it to be true. It is part of the type of town we are, geographically.
Yep.
Our geography is hill. We're a hill town. We're not a valley town. We don't have the nice, wide, flat spots of abundance like Henniker does. We don't even have the level ground, broad outwash plain that Goffstown does. But look at Dunbarton. How much have they been able to do? They're also another hill town.
Yep.
So we're a hill town. The hills are not conducive. We have little pieces. We have maybe approaching 8% of the town is somehow managed by Conservation Commission, and we simply don't have anything that suits that billing. Perhaps over on Eastman, there's a big field. Eastman was part of that large purchase that I mentioned that involved a bond. Actually, with a strong campaign, had strong support. I think you remember that one, Lisa. That was a pretty big deal in town. Some 600
Question
acres.
for you,
But that is not available.
Yep.
Question for you, it's my understanding, and I reached out to the New Hampshire Association of Conservation Commissions, and they indicated to me that any land that is put into conservation can only have passive recreation. And I asked the question because if there was the ability for the Conservation Commission to say, we've got conservation land, but we'll put an active recreation easement on it. And the individual I was talking to there said, once land is put in conservation, it's automatically passive recreation. Therefore, no fields can be placed, any of that. You can walk your dog, you can
Yeah.
possibly ride a horse, that depends on the soil, she said, but it is, you cannot put ball fields.
I think that comes down to the ground disturbance.
Right,
Um,
so
So let me just,
yeah,
if you wanted to have a pickup game of softball on a hayfield,
Yeah.
of course you can do
Yeah.
that. You set down your bases, you have your
Right.
game, you have a fun time, then you wrap it up. But if you wanted to take that same conservation land, level it out, add the fence, add the warning tracks, add the infield, build the mound, put the stripes on, build the football field, the lacrosse field, the, whatever, the courts, tennis courts, whatever else, that involves tying up or modifying the lay of the land. And that's gonna be a real tough one to say, if you brought this land into town ownership using conservation funds, that you could then say, no, you know, what I'd like to do now is minus the seating, have a more stadium-like effect.
right,
Something like Hillsborough, they
So
have
what-
an awesome spot over there
right,
where they do the balloon festival too.
right.
Huge number of fields. You know, that's the sort of thing
Right.
that I think 90% of those who are in favor of conservation in town would say, yeah, that's a town asset.
So I think, I think it's just important, you know, when Dave asked the question, or other people, with it, I know you manage 8%, but the town has close to 23%.
Well,
It's in
That-
the, it's
that's-
on documentation.
that's federal land,
It
that's
is,
state
but
park
it's
land,
still,
but,
it's still,
but that's not anything we
I know
have
it's
that
not
we
what
would say, hey, on this piece, frankly, maybe, I mean,
no,
what was East Ware? Was there enough flat there
What- I
down on the
think my-
day that they could have put a?
I think my only point is that you manage 8, but the town has more than that. Land that is, maybe, part of it is, yes, the state took it for flood control or all that, but it's still part of the town of Ware and what we don't have. But I just, it helped me educate myself when I understood part of the reason we can't go to additional conservation land is because once it's in conservation, it can only be passive recreation. So it does make this piece of property, before we make decisions about where easements are gonna go, there's still an opportunity to have active recreation somewhere on this property. And that's, I think, an important fact that people have to understand. Once it goes into conservation, active recreation only. It's just
You meant passive recreation only.
passive recreation,
Right.
so,
Yeah.
you know, it's just a piece of information, a piece of the puzzle.
We-
It doesn't mean, it's not to sway anybody, it's just to make people understand, you don't have land to give us, because any land that's in conservation can't be active recreation. My
The
understanding.
furthest we typically go is snowmobiling.
Yeah.
And that works because you're on
Right.
snow above the land, you're not
Under
altering
snow.
the
Right.
terrain. In fact, there is, I believe that where Winter Wanderers use a trail across
They do,
those hayfields.
yes, they do.
So, we're not, as a group, that opposed to that. ATVs get difficult because they are oftentimes, too often, tearing up the land. And so, you think beyond tearing up the land, it's like, well, I know it's only temporary, but you gotta tear it up to flatten it, to fill in the holes, to, you know, build the ball field. And I suspect John Stark had a tough time of it when they put the football field over there, cause that did not start as a nice level piece of land to use. They did that, what, 15 years ago now? Something like that.
So I think just from, you know, just to, I mean, I think the sad part is, you know, we're fighting for the kids in this town to get some athletic fields. You know, it's even difficult for me to be a member of this committee when we're about to face spring. We don't have enough ball fields. You know, Dave just mentioned we got a request for baseball that's it's gonna take away from soccer, so soccer's gonna be upset. You know, our member from town who spoke said, you know, that we're pitting each other against each other. And conservation is important, having land is important, having places you can go and walk and hike, and all of those things are important, but having places you can bring your kids to. And I just think it's unfortunate that this has come down to looking like we're all at war. And I think what we really want is we want a place for our kids to play baseball and soccer and yeah, even the tennis courts. The re-enhancement of those tennis courts have brought the older population of this town back together again, people meeting people that they've never met. So
And kids
Now-
playing with them too.
I think that.
If I may, you're talking my language. I love the community building aspect, and that was what we captured 10 years ago. And I hate to think we're losing that, because 10 years ago, we brought disparate interests together, supposedly disparate. I mean, what, conservation's gonna team up on something where you're mining out gravel? Like,
Right.
you know, some people, some places, that would be anathema. You can't do it. That's, you know,
Right.
disturbing something sacred. But there was balance, and I think we've been off balanced here for some number of months or years or what have you, and I would also like to get back to a more balanced situation where needs are shared, or burdens are shared, so that needs can be met and, you know, problems can be solved.
But I
And
do.
I think we got way
Right.
off to the wrong
Right.
foot in our start, and that perhaps has nothing to do with Parks and Rec, but it's just a common factor in town government, one body not wanting to acknowledge another one, not wanting to be invited to the table. And there's been great investment in this, and I can appreciate that. It's not easy. We on Conservation Commission have invested a lot too. I think Lisa knows how hard Steve works for the town benefit. It's not looking to personally gain anything. It's to, you know, build a community that has a conservation ethos. And we've been supported very well for years. And
But I
maybe we'll be told something else this time.
And I think what we're seeing is a tremendous pent-up demand. Because of unfortunate circumstances, maybe the property wasn't taken care of 10 years ago, and now I think you have a community who is desperate for a place to put ball fields, and knowing that, you know, I would love to think if we went for a bond, we'd get it.
We have teams that are renting fields in other
But
towns right now, because we don't have space.
I guess I'm just saying that nobody wants to be at war. You and the Conservation Commission are trying to do the right thing. I think Parks and Rec
Well-
are trying to do the right thing. I think the people in the community are trying to do the right thing. And maybe at the end of the day, and I've said this to the board and I've said it to Salem, sometimes you have to put it back in front of the voters and see what happens. And I think we've all said here, if the voters come back and say, absolutely not, this was supposed to go in conservation, you cannot have the fields, then we move on and we figure out what we need to do. And I think that's
But-
part of why we're where we are today. Let the voters decide.
And I think that's a great thing to do. Unfortunately, we've gone beyond that with these, I'll say personally, with these petition articles. You know, they've gone beyond, let's make a choice, one or the other, to let's crush the Conservation Commission. When you take away the leadership, when you take away the property, when you take away the funds, you have crushed an organization. And so we have apparently so offended some that they now want to crush the Conservation Commission, and that I do not believe is in the town interest. And we need to, as an organization within town, as a part of the government body, we need to fight for our life. I mean, that's what this has become.
Right.
I'm sorry for that.
And I feel the same way, but unfortunately, we are where we are, and I think at this point, some of it's gonna have to play out. and I do think that there maybe are other funding opportunities. You know, there's gotta, I think Parks and Rec, we have to look at how we get additional monies. You know, and the way you guys are fortunate, you get monies from the land use tax. Many other towns put that money into a common fund, and at the end of the year, the taxpayers get to say, you get 10%, you get 10%. You know, maybe there are other, especially if we can't get this land, there are other opportunities to get money set aside to purchase something. You know, Steve did,
I think you
You
would
were
find
Steve,
that we're
said-
actually pretty good allies when it comes to evaluating land and procuring
Yeah.
land. We're actually pretty good allies. So I would hope the town
Right.
views us as allies of the Parks and Rec Commission, allies of the athletic clubs, and not the opposition, not the
right,
enemies.
right. So I mean, I think at this point, it is what it is, and, you know, being there to represent the Parks and Rec, I just have to make sure I ask the questions that, for particularly Salem, since he represents, or sits here with us, just to make sure what our concerns are. Doesn't mean they're gonna change anything or whatever, but, I know personally, I don't wanna be at war with any other body in this town. I want us to all work together. We're just frustrated by a whole lot of pent-up demand, and we just have very little options, you know, for us right now,
And
so.
before I step, I appreciate that. Before I step aside, I'll circle back. We've never had a chance to have a good conversation. I hope we do sometime.
Yeah.
And I apologize that my
Yeah.
attempt earlier did not work.
Yeah, that's okay, thank you, I appreciate
But,
you
I
coming tonight.
mean, one more thing, sorry, is,
I'm not
You know,
planning to go.
no,
It's your
it's,
meeting, I'm
you were
here.
saying, you know, okay, if you have somewhere on that property where you think it would work, we would love to see, hey, I mean, cause you obviously sound like you guys have way more talent
Well,
than I ever will,
this
as
is what
far
we
as
could
looking
do.
at a land map and going, hey, here's where you can put it
This
in.
is what you could do, Dave. You could, the commission could say, hey, you know, we request out of this meeting that Conservation Commission sit down with us and inform us, look at this property, see what our alternatives are. We got very short time before deliberative. Frankly, it could almost happen at deliberative. But unfortunately, part of that gets set up in a, you know, win your argument, win your case. You know, it's a little bit of a overdone deal or a major deal at that point. But if there's some way we could look at it with you, looking at the same pictures, I think very quickly you might see what I'm suggesting. We might better appreciate the predicament you're in, and there might be some place in the middle that we haven't fully vetted yet.
Okay.
My concern on what it sounded like Benji said is, it's hard to do something with a narrow strip. In that area by the old dugout area that's a pond now, and, it's still pretty narrow, so,
Yeah, I mean, when you walk beyond that fence and in there, a lot of it's swamp and things like that.
It's also, there's quite the drop off.
honestly, I think the hayfield might have been landfill, because it's got a very odd straight edge to it between the woods behind the hayfield and the swamp. It's like a straight line, and nature doesn't do straight lines very often, so. I think there might have been some material moved. It seems odd that you would do it for a farm, but, you know, sometimes they surprise us with their ability to take a hill, an esker, you know, this is, you know, glacial remnants. Boston did a lot of this, take down the hills, fill in the lowlands, and then you have something more flat to build on.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry to take so much time.
No worries.
We
Thank you for
appreciate
your
it.
information.
Conversation.
Okay, so,
I just wanted to look and see if I had anything, so, kind of left where, Monday night's meeting, and then I think as you saw in here, there are 4 other petition articles. Mike Preventure will be speaking to the Article 29.
but that's their article, not ours, right?
It's their article by petition, he's the sponsor.
Okay,
Ours was the one that we were,
okay.
Did we
that
pull-
we just pulled.
Um,
And you'll let them know on Monday that we're gonna pull our article. Okay, thank you,
And
Denise.
the two that I wrote down to come back, you said you'd like for the cost to appear, and we've talked about this, but does the 12 acres in the CC article have to be contiguous with the 8?
I come back to everything I heard on almost every article. And I think you've heard it to the Board of Selectmen, transparency. And I just think people wanna know, even if it doesn't have a tax impact, there is, I mean, the chatter I hear is that even though there is conservation money, that money comes from the current land use dollars, most of it. They get 75% of that money. People in this town perceive that as their tax money, because if it wasn't going there, it would be going to the general fund to offset their taxes. So even though it doesn't have a impact on their taxes, they still feel it's their money that's being spent. And I think, again, it's the I think some of the result of these other petition articles is that frustration of, just tell us, be honest, tell us everything. And if we didn't learn a lesson on Article 29, let's just put all the data in there for them, so they at least know how much money is gonna come out of the conservation fund to put this into conservation. That's what I'm hearing on the, and I feel like every other article last night, that was the big theme. Tell us how much the full cost is, not just to bump up the salaries. So let's just be consistent. I guess that's my plea. I was gonna stand up last night and ask that question if we had ever gotten to that point. So anyways,
All right, thanks Denise. All right, so field usage request from WAC, we're gonna table that until our field usage meeting in March.
Okay.
Everyone all set with that?
Yep.
We usually do that anyway, we have gotten them in earlier and we just,
But it's two new directors, so I didn't know if they were aware of it.
I will look to see, I will make sure that the director of directors knows.
Yep. Do we have anything financial that we needed to take care of, Lisa?
The only thing is that at the end of the year, I was not able to buy the things that I wanted to be able to get from Country 3.
Okay,
The locks have come in, so,
okay. The locks were probably the most important thing anyways.
yeah, so
Okay.
I need to get those on.
yeah,
Alright.
the gates are all still open.
They are.
Okay, so once we get the locks, we can get the gates closed.
I do have one Chase Park thing, can I bring that up?
Sure.
And that is that typically once the lake freezes over, we unlock the gate.
Hasn't frozen over yet.
And I just don't, I don't see it happening this year, I just don't,
You're just gonna keep an eye on it.
yeah. So if anybody does happen to drive by and sees that it's like, all
Hanging by
frozen
a
over
hinge.
and.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and it's definitely not safe to open those gates until it is, because we end up with people driving across the grass, and the grass hasn't
Yeah.
we need to protect the grassy beach side too.
Okay. So my question about the warrant article was already taken care of in our previous discussion. So the additional business, I just wanna take, again, the minute taker position. Everyone is okay with that being posted?
Yep.
I do have an individual that I wanted to reach out to first. I think I can, if she, was interested in the Kirsten's position. So I was gonna reach out to her.
And just let her know that it is being
Yep.
posted.
Yep, and then we'll have it open. It would be
My comment too was just that I wanna make sure they understand in the months that we can't get this from.
yeah, they have to be in
they have
person.
to be here
Yep.
in person.
And it does say,
No, we wrote, sorry.
yeah, so the description, so the task description was accurately reporting attendance and discussion at the meetings of Park and Rec Commission, anticipating 11, now 10 meetings in 2024 minutes may be taken remotely or in person, accurately transcribing motions and the results of all votes, verifying spelling, grammar, and formatting of the minutes, transmitting completed draft minutes electronically to the town administrator and to the board within 5 business days of the meeting date required by New Hampshire law, RSA 91A. List the qualifications. Previous minute-taking experience is preferred but not required. Proven ability to meet deadlines, excellent communication skills, written and oral, excellent organizational skills, ability to work independently, proficiency with computers and online file sharing, such as Microsoft Office and email applications. And then the per diem is to be, let's see, our budget is $750. So it would come out to about $60 per meeting. And then that's for 10 meetings. We can have them miss one meeting and one of us can take it, or we can just not meet 1 month.
Well, we've had months where we didn't have a quorum.
Right.
So, I mean, that has
Right.
happened.
So I will have this, I'll update the posted date tomorrow and have this posted to the website and to our Facebook page. And then hopefully we can have them in place for March. I'm thinking. And also the March meeting is scheduled for election night, so I will not be available. Because I will be at the election,
What night is that?
March 12th.
Let's look.
So we can,
And we always have trouble with it being that night.
Well, why don't we just look
Can we
at
move it?
rescheduling it?
Yeah. So can we? Let's take a look at that right now. I would ask that we have the meeting on March 5th instead.
I think
The
we
week
can do that.
before, and the reason is that we have that crunch time that happens in March with, March and April with hiring
Yep,
for Chase Park. So I'd rather not delay it.
okay. I think we can do that.
Is that okay with everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a problem with that either, but we may be headed to Florida for 3 or 4 weeks, so I just,
Yeah,
I might not make it, but.
I just don't
My
want-
second question, we had an applicant to fill the vacancy,
Okay.
didn't we? That's my question
Yes.
to you.
3.
Have we talked to?
I didn't see any of the emails. That,
One email or 2 emails and 1 person in person?
I know you had, someone forwarded Tracy Carl. You got an email from Matt Beeler.
Oh, we all, Park,
I didn't get
I
it.
didn't get
They
it.
did,
didn't get
they did something to our distribution list,
I saw him testing it, didn't I?
because I told him, I will not look at my work email when I'm not at work, because I'm not at work. So I needed to have my personal email, and I'm still not getting the park emails.
So I only knew about one candidate because Naomi
Forwarded
mentioned
it,
it
okay,
and wondered why we hadn't reached out to them. And
Okay.
I was like, I don't think anybody got it. And if there are a second or third person, I haven't seen any of those emails. But I think in light of, we haven't filled Janine's position and we were down a position anyways, we should try to do what we can, and we have.
we had
people
that one
expired-
person that visited in October.
Right, but
She never came back,
nor
okay,
did she apply.
all right,
But we also have 2024 vacancies coming up, and if anybody decides not to
so who's not gonna,
go for a second
to your
term,
point,
then if we have 3 candidates, I think we should be talking to as many
Okay.
as we, so,
all right,
but anyways, I think we should put that as a high priority to figure out who we have for applicants, get them in here and talk to them. If they have to talk to the select board, do that too, and let's get them filled.
okay,
And they should come here first.
yes,
Yes,
let's come here
Mhm.
first,
So if there are 2 or 3, let's see if we could get them to our February meeting.
okay,
That'd be great.
all right. Is there,
Can I interject one?
yes, you may,
So what, does the commission think of Andy's, thought there at the end about trying to get a meeting together?
I think it would be really nice to pull it together.
Like, just the little bit, from where I'm sitting, the little bit of like, the two sides working together was really nice to see. And so it'd be great to see something come together, as, it may be unlikely, but it'd be nice to try.
Yeah.
Well, and I
mean,
think-
even if it's the other land that, they may know what other land the town owns that's not in conservation, that we might be say, hey, go put it,
Yeah.
here's other spot that you can go put it in.
And, I mean, something I've heard throughout this, and you'd stop me if I'm totally off base, but, that the people who sit on conservation have been doing it long enough that they know, not to say like when land is gonna become available, but like, they know sometimes who to talk to.
And
So,
maybe if-
there's an avenue of like, okay, it's not town land today, or it's not even more specifically conservation land today, but, hey, something's coming.
Well, I think part of the problem, though, from my perspective, as, you know, as somebody who's sat on conservation, as somebody who's sat on this board, as somebody who's volunteered, you know, with our sports and recs in town and has 3 kids who have really benefited from that, I thought in 2013 that just like, this man said earlier, that property was gonna be fields by now. I had no idea that it wouldn't be fields by now, that there wouldn't be some field property. I think starting over and looking at something else is fine, but I do think I do think that we have an urgent need for fields right now. I've asked in the past for Naomi to keep her eye open for maybe, other properties that might come available because taxes aren't paid, that kind of thing. I do think that maybe it would be I really do believe it would be beneficial for both Parks and Rec and for conservation, when there are properties that come up for conservation, to be involved together. Because maybe there's sections of certain properties that could be used for fields. And then you've got a spot where you've got parking for trails, kind of like Bolton. So you've got the fields, you've got parking for trails. You know, it's good. The bad thing about Bolton and other places like that, where you have a long driveway, is that then we end up with these problems out in the fields where there's all sorts of, destruction of fields or destruction of property, destruction of buildings. And that's a problem. So that was, one of the things about that property on East Road is that it's right there. It's
Easy for the police to swing
easy for
in.
the police to swing in. It's
Well-
not gonna be on an obnoxiously long driveway. Like, we're looking at that going, wow, this actually could work. So I think as other properties come available, that maybe we need to start talking to people who are thinking about selling off their property for conservation, or who are donating their property for conservation, that they're also maybe keeping in mind that, having some baseball fields or a softball field is not such a bad idea either. Or a soccer field, or what, we have so many kids in town that right now are paying through the nose to go play other places because our fields we don't have enough.
And what we have are
We have inadequate facilities for so much right now.
and they're being overused.
They're being overused. We had a huge fight in Tara when Tara was on Parks and Rec. And, I remember this from serving on WAC and on Parks and Rec. Huge battles between, different sports families. If you were football, then you didn't like soccer because they might impede on your field. That's not good for the community. So we need more field space. We needed it 10 years ago. And I think that we really urgently need to start focusing on this, or we're really gonna find ourselves in a circular argument. It's just gonna keep happening, and that's not good for us either. Like, we need to do something together, but it needs to happen fast.
I think to go to your question, I know for me personally, I always want all boards, commissions to work together. We're here to serve the town and the kids. I think there are a couple things that are important to keep in mind. Urgency is the number one. We need fields urgently. We can't wait 4, 5, 6 more years. it ties our hands. So urgency is one. The second piece is money. And I think why the front part of that property became attractive is the cost to build roads a mile out, put utilities,
Right.
cut trees.
But-
But I do think that is there an opportunity for the parks with the Board of Selectmen to talk about funding? And, I know, I put some numbers together. If you go back and you look at a 10-year look back at the land use tax that's been collected, there's probably somewhere between 600 and $1 million that has come into this town in land use tax. And maybe it's time to look at, is there opportunities for Parks and Rec to have access to some of that money? So that, what if 6 months from now or a year from now, a piece of property did come up? What if conservation were to find us, say, hey, somebody's approached us, and this is great land, this would be a great recreational facility. If anybody, I've been here long enough. Right now, with the current economy and what we heard last night, I don't know many people who are gonna support a bond, to go out and bond. I think we have to start accumulating revenue or some monies that we can have a fund to turn to and say to the town, we have a piece of property, we actually have the money, can we buy it? So I do think the select board has to address,
Okay, I'm not trying to be rude, but my question was like about the meeting, like, is the
Oh.
commission okay setting that up? And then
Yes.
kind of rehashing some of the,
Yes, I
Yeah.
think we should need to do that, and go from there.
Definitely.
I mean, so other than that, I don't think we have anything else, correct?
Yep.
Thank you to everybody who came tonight.
Andy,
Yes.
Thank
do you have any days that you would, the commission would be able to put something together? I don't know when you guys meet.
So we're the second Wednesday of each month.
Okay.
We did that last. I would think,
Because deliberative is February
It
3rd.
could be helpful to the town to see folks work together on this. So having a meeting that's either, somehow easily publicized, camera, sound, what have you, good idea. That gets very difficult in this room.
They're working on putting a camera upstairs too, so that we're gonna have,
We'll
that's,
have that before the
I don't know when, but I know they're working on it.
But in general, Wednesday evenings, Tuesday evenings.
Okay.
Heck, I was thinking of this room last Thursday evening, so. Yeah, generally Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday are, places we could. I don't know who would be available. I hear nobody schedules this room for Fridays.
No,
see why.
no, there's no meetings on Fridays. Okay.
So I think we've got, for next week and the week after, if we wanna try to make something work, and I would just recommend, come up with this. If this commission would like, oftentimes it goes through the chair, could reach out, to conservation@warenh.gov and say, we'd like to take you up on the offer. Could we arrange a joint meeting?
Okay.
And have it so that we could have a quorum, and if you don't have enough to have a quorum of your particular commission, then you don't. You just work with folks who are available and have it an open discussion to look at this property, and then also in unison, throw around ideas, other options that might be able to sprout legs towards something sooner than later.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
That's you. That sets that up.
That is me. Great. Everyone else up?
Yep.
Okay. I'm adjourning the meeting at 8:35. Thank you very much.
I'll second.
Oh. I can't just do it. Someone needs to make a motion to adjourn at 8:35.
I make a motion to adjourn.
A second. A second.
I'll second it. I thought you were saying you seconding it. I'm like, okay, great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
They're working so well together.
We're too tired.